Hey everybody, welcome back to 3-Day Weekend. I'm in the wife's Jeep today, 2006 Jeep Commander with a 5.7, and she brought it back to me with a check engine light on. Check engine lights on for P0404 EGR Valve. So we're going to replace that with this guy today. So let's do it. If you're more familiar with torque, it reads out the code P0404. Exhaust gas, recirculation, control circuit, range, performance. The Kenwoods are nice, but they don't tell you what the code means, just P0404, and you got to know what it is or just look it up. But that's what it looks like in torque. And in alpha, it looks like this, P0404, EGR position sensor performance. The EGR valve, it's not a bad job, but it is located right around in here. So I'm going to pop off this cover, the airbox, and the engine cover, just so I can get to it a little better. To remove this cover, we got to loosen these clamps over here, and then pop this off, and loosen another one right here. And there is a wire connected to the bottom, a little sensor. Got to be careful of that. Oh, cover's out of the way, loosen that one. So now I can start pulling it off. There we go. Oh, I almost forgot. There is a 10mm bolt right down in here. Right here. Gotta take that off. There's the plug over on this side. We're getting closer. This is the EGR valve right here. I'll unplug this connector first, which has a lock on it. Just push that through, and then you'll be able to push this down and unplug it. And now we can start to see what we're up against. We got to take off these two bolts, which will probably be rusted, so be very careful. And then there's two bolts at the bottom that hold it on. It'll probably be easier to show you with the new one, which is here. So we got the two bolts that hold the exhaust pipe on, and then the two that hold it to the front block. So that's what we are trying to take off. And those first ones appear to be 8mm. The bottom ones, I do believe, are 10. And they are rusty, so be careful. The good news is they put them in a super awkward position, so they're nice and difficult to get to. Well, we can do it. We have the technology. Oh, actually, coming out pretty easy. This particular Jeep has 171 maybe thousand miles on it. 170, close to there. And it appears to be original. If it isn't original, it hasn't been replaced recently, so that's a good sign. And these things oftentimes will just get gummed up, especially because we burn regular fuel in it and it's a daily driver. Short trips. They don't like short trips. They want an occasional long trip, which ironically enough, the light came on after or during a long trip where I was actually using the EGR. But if you burn some high octane fuel through it, sometimes it'll clean off. I've also heard some people can pop these open, clean them out. It's not an expensive part. I'd rather just put a new one on it and not have to worry about it again than to risk having to do it twice. But to each his own. If you can save a buck and clean it out, good for you. Otherwise, you're going to be here doing what I'm doing right now. Okay, so that's the two for our exhaust pipe. I'm gonna swing that up out of the way. I dropped the gasket, I don't really care, it comes with a new one. And then that pipe just pulls right out of your intake runner. We can set that aside so it's out of the way. So now we are just left with the two front bolts. Like I said, 10 millimeter, and those are right in the front as well. I'm getting the first one. You can see I'm on it right down there. Short extension got me lined up with this little slot right here, and it's coming out. It didn't want to come out at first, so I did have to hit it with some Dr. Pibb, and then it started to come out. But boy, that was tight, had me worried. So I'm gonna finish taking this one out and then move down and get that second one out of there. I ran into a problem. So I've got a little ratcheting crescent on here because the alternator's in the way of that bolt. And I got it on there and I'm loosening it away and everything's good. And then, oop, bolt hits the back of the alternator. Not enough space to take the bolt out. It's so loose, but it won't come out. So I'm gonna have to at least loosen the alternator, probably take out the top bolt, loosen the bottom one, so that'll swing right out of the way, this guy right here. So in order to do that, gotta take the belt off. Take the belt off is easy. Just take your 3/8 extension, stick it right in the bottom of that tensioner right there, and you turn. The alternator is held in with 2 bolts that I can see so far. First one is right at the end of my screwdriver. Sorry, it's so hard to see with this camera. You can see my socket. And the other one down on the bottom of the alternator, a little bit lower through that gap. Like I said, I'm going to take the front one completely out, then loosen the bottom one, and it should be enough to just get it to swing out of the way. Unless there's a third hidden one I don't see. I got it out. Remember earlier I said I was going to loosen the front of the alternator, or the top, and then loosen the bottom. Yeah, I just took the whole bottom right out, which is easy to get to from the bottom, so it's not terrible. It's probably easier to get to than the top was. But that's the only way I could swing this alternator far enough away from the block. That's the mounting hole. That's the alternator. It's the only way I could get enough gap in there to get the stinking thing out. But you see, this is all soot and everything all in there. So we're just gonna clean that up a little bit. Here's the old one. And it's all soot. So sometimes it's all gummed up in this valve. Then you clean it out and it might work a while. Other times it's the motor itself. You see, this is OEM. That's been in there a long time. So I am glad I've decided just to go with a new one. It's so shiny. It looks glorious. Oh, I'm gonna grab some pad and just clean up the front of the block and that mounting surface. Here's the old gasket that was on there. You can see it only goes on one way. And they are crimped holes, so they hold onto your bolts for you, so that's convenient. So I'm gonna throw the new one on after I do some cleaning. New gasket is directional. It's got a pretty good ridge on one side and it's pretty much flat on the other. See that ridge, flat? And the ridge was clearly into that one, so I'm going to put the ridge into this one. Otherwise, it only goes on one way. You can't really do it upside down. Oh, center camera. So it goes like that. Like I said, it'll hold the bolts, so I'll put the bolts in to hold it, set it right in there, and tighten it right up to that nice clean cylinder head. Looks like it goes in. The alternator is back in position and the bolts reinstalled. What I did on the bottom one, I just lined that up by hand from underneath and started the first bolt. And then for the top one, because it's kind of a pressure fit around this guy right here, is the old crowbar against the frame rail trick. And just by putting it in there and pushing up against, I was able to just push that right back into position. So it was lined up enough, the bolt slid right through and tightened that down. So that just leaves, obviously, the belt, but our exhaust pipe can go on next. So don't forget your gasket. These are the same way as the bolts down below. They're designed to hold in the gasket. So you can put those in and get them started before you actually get it going. I always like to start these a few threads by hand before I get the wrench to them. And if you remember, that was 8mm, tighten those up. And last for the EGR valve, plug in our connector and lock her in place. There we go. Remember, this plug goes to the bottom of our intake. Don't want to forget that guy. But next, we got to put on the belt. Hopefully, you're like me and you didn't remove the belt entirely. So you can just kind of glance and see where it goes. But we're going to put it on the same way as how we took it off. Many vehicles have a diagram here to show you how it went. I don't see one under the hood of this Jeep. Let me describe it to you real quick. Let's start down, let's see. Let's go on this side. So the bottom right is your air conditioner compressor. It goes straight over to the crank from that. And then, where does it go? And then it goes back around to your tensioner. And then from the tensioner, it goes all the way over to your air conditioner or your alternator. Back underneath your idler, then up around water pump and over your power steering. Like I said, fortunately I didn't take it all the way off, so I just got to droop it around my alternator and my water pump. And I'll be in pretty good shape. Tighten down our 10 mil. Oh, that's nice and started. Then I'm going to tighten our clamp first. It's 5/16 if I didn't mention it before. I don't think I did. I forgot to plug in the connector. See, I told you. Don't forget about your connector. Fortunately, if you forgot, I can feel it right here. It can be done. There you go. Tab is in the spot. Everything's lined up. Perfect. 5/16. Send them home. Not too tight. Nice and snug. There it is. She's back together. Whew. Back inside. Gonna make sure it starts. Check engine light will stay on. And I lied, it's 166,000 miles. The other one had a little bit more. Vehicle info. I'm just looking for any additional codes, which there aren't any. This will clear itself after a certain number of drive cycles, but I'm in a hurry. So we're gonna reset that right now. And we are good to go. I'm telling you, I love these Kenwoods. That is so easy to do. What was the time when I started? 8:08 maybe? So an hour and a half, we'll say, to do the job while making a video. So you can probably do it in less than that. Well, that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate all of our viewers, all of our subscribers, especially those super thanks. If you haven't done so already, click right here on the button, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. And we'll see you next time right here on 3 Day Weekend.